Well, brothers and sisters, here we are again. This is the In My Grow Show, the podcast dedicated to taking the mystery out of cannabis. As always, I'm your host, Alex Robles. I appreciate you hanging out and listening to me talk wherever you're at on the planet. Thank you for taking the time. I want to give a special thanks to all the musicians who let me use their music throughout my podcasts. Ben Sound. I'm always using his jazzy piano as my theme song. And I try to give the proper credit in the show notes at the end. Because in order for me to have music on the show, it has to be royalty free. Because I can't afford to pay anybody. At least not yet. So I've got to go out there and look for these artists who are willing to put their music out there. So again, thank you to all the musicians. So I need to make a correction. Last show I was talking about that I spoke to Dr. Margaret Peterson at that CBD conference. That was not true. I did not speak to Dr. Margaret Peterson. I spoke to a very smart woman by the name of Liz Rogan. She was the one that was speaking about CBD. Really smart woman who I'm also planning on getting on the show so we can talk further about CBD and kind of break that down into chunks that we can all understand. So once again, Liz Rogan, Dr. Margaret Peterson, I'm sorry for getting you ladies mixed up. Alright, so this week's strain of the week goes to some cherry AK-47 that I picked up from my cousin. Cousin, if you're listening, thank you very much. That is an awesome strain. I think I've spoken about this before. AK-47 is one of my favorite strains. It's in my top 5 for sure. Let's see, what would that top 5 be? It would be Durban Poison, AK-47, Jack Herer. What else would round out that 5? What would be those other 2? I don't know. I need to write that down. That's a good topic for a show. Alex's top 5 of all time. All-time top 5. Alright, let's write that down. I need to make a note. If I don't make a note, I'll forget about what I promised I'd talk about. And then I just have to wait for it to come back around on the carousel in my mind and go, boonk. Oh, there it is. That's a good topic. I have to write that down. I get real talkative and go off on tangents right after I smoke a bowl. So there may be a little, conversational drift. Alright, but back to the AK-47. Now the AK-47 itself is a mix between Colombian, Mexican, Thai, and Afghan varieties. It's a sativa dominant hybrid. That's really why I enjoy it, because I can really just keep focused and not have to worry about getting all sleepy time at the end there. And the AK was created back in 1992 by Serious Seed. 1992, a long time ago. Not really. It wasn't really that long ago. So I'm going to read to you what Leafly says about the cherry AK-47. Okay. This strain is a rare cherry phenotype of AK-47 with its reddish purple characteristics and cherry aroma. It is fruity, and I do like a fruity smelling bud. The strain's flavors are described as smooth cherry with a creamy sandalwood aftertaste. Wow, really? A creamy sandalwood aftertaste? I didn't get that at all. But that sounds fucking romantic, doesn't it? And it also says with a THC level of up to 16% and a CBD level of 0.5, cherry AK-47 creeps up from the cerebral effects to a complete body sensation. Whoever wrote that's got these great adjectives. So if you ever see the cherry AK-47, pick some up. You'll really enjoy it. Alright, next, a couple of things I want to talk about. So, out here in California, all the cannabis that's sold in a dispensary has to be prepackaged, whether it's in a little Ziploc or in these small jars. There's got to be some other way, because my life is being overtaken by jars, empty jars. It's not like I can take the jars back to the dispensary and tell them, hey, can you just fill this up with that, quarter of whatever it is? No. You get a new jar every time. And the glass jars, they look nice. It's awesome packaging. You understand a little bit where the money's going towards this awesome little packaging that's childproof. But once again, it seems like a lot of waste. I'm wondering if there's like a hemp plastic. Because the alternative to the glass jars are the plastic Ziplocs that are already prepackaged, weighed out. That creates a whole other conversation. Well, now it's just plastic that has to be also recycled. I mean, it's easier to get rid of. I don't have to feel like I have to hang on to them like I do with the glass jars. But, can I recycle those glass jars? I don't think it says anywhere on there that I can. I'm going to try that. So as I was saying, I'm wondering if there's like a hemp version of plastic that we can use. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? The whole cycle, just hemp packaging for recreational or medical cannabis. Ooh, there's got to be a way, right? There's got to be a way. I know they're making plastic out of hemp. Come on, somebody get on that. So, yeah, cannabis packaging. Seems like a lot of waste. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Email me. inmygrow@gmail.com. Even easier, find me on Instagram, @inmygrow. What else? Alright, so a couple of months ago I was at Barnes & Noble with my daughter. Barnes & Noble. I always want to throw an S at the end of Noble. Barnes & Nobles. It drives my wife nuts. Anyways, so we were at the bookstore a couple months ago, and I picked up a magazine called Grow Magazine. I'd never heard about it before, and mostly the reason I picked it up was because it was the Sun Grow issue. And, it talked about growing outdoors, or mostly growing in greenhouses. And it had a few tips, a few things to think about. Kind of wish I had a little more meat to the conversation of sun-grown, but like I said, it was alright. But what I did like, but there are a couple of things that I did like about the magazine. And they have a section called Grow Chronicles, and they get like 4 different strains, and they showcase the growers that grew it. They got some nice pictures. They've got, they got the cannabinoids broken down for that strain. This one has Quantum Kush, Gorilla Glue number 4, Blue City Diesel, and Grapefruit. So that was kind of cool. It gives you the grower's name, the lineage, birth, I guess, from seed, type of medium. Oh, hey, this guy used Kiss Organics. Right on. So I thought that was a cool thing they did. Another thing they had in the magazine was a section that's called Ask Ed, which is Ask Ed Rosenthal. And I thought that was really cool because Ed Rosenthal, he's, one of the giants in the cannabis industry as far as knowledge of growing. If you don't know who he is, you should really go look him up. But I thought that was cool. And they also had a cool article about, it's titled Strain Specific Terpenes. Yeah, there it is, Grow Magazine. I'll pick it up again. But the most astounding part of this magazine, the thing that really I couldn't believe, was that it was $4.95. Because usually magazines lately have been like $12, $9. And I don't mind paying for it if it has good content. I guess that's why we stand at the magazine rack and look through it. That was pretty cool, Grow Magazine. Well, brothers and sisters, I'm going to take a short break, get a drink of water, and we're going to go over, the report from the Cannabis Front Line. And I'm also going to talk about a formula for figuring out the dosage for homemade edibles. Alright, well, hang tight. I shall be right back.
People are dying to get to the top. So many people are crashing to reach to the top. So many people are dying to get to the top. So many people just want to reach to the top. Listen, can that race with the clock? Oh, no.
Alright, so I'm back and I'm ready to do the report from the Cannabis Front Line. So since a lot of state governments are off for the summer, there's not a lot going on there. I'm going to read off a couple of interesting studies that I heard about. The first one is legal cannabis associated with clearing crime. And this comes out of Pullman, Washington. The enactment of state laws regulating adult marijuana use is associated with an increase in crime clearance rates, according to data published in the journal Police Quarterly. Clearance rates are calculated by dividing the number of crimes that are cleared, charges are filed, by the total number of crimes reported. Criminologists at Washington State University assessed crime clearance rates in Colorado and Washington in the years immediately prior to and immediately following the enactment of adult use legalization. They reported that clearance rates were either flat or decreasing prior to legalization, but then improved significantly following the change in law, particularly with respect to violent crimes and property crimes. Authors concluded, the current evidence suggests that legalization produced some demonstrative and persistent benefits in clearance rates, benefits we believe are associated with the marijuana legalization's proponents' predictions that legalization would positively influence police performance. So let me see if I understand this. So what they found was that in states where cannabis was legalized, the police were able to clear more of the crimes reported or bring charges for more of the crimes reported. And that sounds like I need to talk to a cop to help me really be able to get my head around this and really know how to explain that. Because while I see what they're trying to say, I don't know if I could explain it to somebody. But there it is, folks. It looks like when marijuana is legalized, more crimes are solved. No, I'm kidding. I don't think it's that simple. So I'll talk to somebody I know and get back to you on that. The next one is cannabis and opioid use. Investigators with the University of California at San Diego assessed the relationship between medical cannabis legalization and opioid use among Medicaid enrollees over a period of 21 years, from 1993 to 2014. Authors reported for Schedule III opioid prescription, medical cannabis legalization was associated with 29.6% reduction in the number of prescriptions, 29.9% reduction in dosage, and 28.8% reduction in related Medicaid spending. They concluded, in this study, we found that statewide medical cannabis legalization implemented in 1993 to 2014 in the U.S. was associated with close to 30% reduction in Schedule III opioids received by Medicaid enrollees. Their findings are similar to those of several other observational studies finding that medical marijuana regulations is correlated with reductions in opioid-related use, drug spending, abuse, hospitalization, and mortality. Separate data evaluating prescription drug use trends among individual patients enrolled in state-licensed medical marijuana programs is consistent with this conclusion, finding that many chronic pain subjects reduce or eliminate their use of opioids following enrollment. Just a little more information so we can have an open conversation on whether legalizing cannabis is a good idea. And the next study looked at whether dispensaries contributed to a higher crime rate. And it reads, the operation of medical cannabis dispensary is not associated with increases in either violent crimes or property crimes, according to the findings of a discussion paper published by the IZA Research Institute. Researchers affiliated with the RAND Corporation investigated whether the establishment of medical cannabis dispensaries in California affects local crime rates, including rates of violent crime, property crime, and substance abuse crimes. Authors found no evidence that ordinances allowing for medical marijuana dispensaries lead to an increase in crime. In fact, we see some evidence of a reduction in property crimes. RAND's investigators concluded, our study appears to reinforce the conclusion from other studies that fail to find an increase in the type of crime predicted by law enforcement. We find no effects on burglary, robberies, or assaults, which are the type of crimes one would expect if dispensaries were prime targets as a result of their holding large amounts of cash. Our findings suggest that it is possible to regulate these markets and find a common ground between safety and access to medical marijuana. I found all 3 of these studies over at the NORML website. That is normal.org. Go over there, stay informed, become a member. And with that, I wrap up today's report from the Cannabis Frontlines. Alright, let's look at calcium. Calcium is needed throughout the plant's life cycle. Okay, it uses as much calcium probably as it would any other, macronutrient, because it helps keep the plant cell healthy. It also helps the plant transpire, helps the plant sweat. It's really important that the plant gets as much calcium as it needs. Also, let's remember that calcium is immobile. Which means that it can't store the calcium one place in the plant in the leaf, and then when it needs it, pull it out of the leaf if it's not getting it from the soil. If the plant isn't getting calcium from the soil, if we're not feeding our plant calcium, it has nowhere else to get it from. That deficiency is going to make that plant slow down. It's not going to grow as quickly as it once was. And since it's immobile, we're going to see those symptoms of like a yellowing leaf. We're going to see them first on the newer leaves, because those newer leaves have nowhere to get the calcium from. The older leaves already have the calcium they need. They're not going to show signs. But the newer leaves, since they can't pull it from anywhere, are just going to start to show those signs of yellowing. Something else you're going to notice the plant do is the stems are going to be real soft, real bendy. They're not going to be kind of rigid the way they were before. Once again, that has to do with the health of the cell wall. So when we feed our plants, we want to make sure what we're feeding them has the calcium that the plant's going to need. Most bottle nutrients already have an amount of calcium that the plant needs for that stage of growth. But, some plants are what they call heavy feeders. They take more nutrients than other plants. So just keep an eye out for it. If you think it is a calcium deficiency that you have, check your pH first. That's usually where I start with any kind of deficiency that I suspect is my pH. Is there something in the pH that's holding back, that's stopping the plant from absorbing this? If the calcium deficiency happens, or if the calcium deficiency comes up during flower, since the plant's going to slow down, bud production is also going to slow down. Those buds are going to be a lot smaller than they would have been if that plant had everything it needed. What I typically do to avoid this is I'll add oyster shell to my soil mix. I've also used that oyster shell because it's really fine powder. I've mixed it into water and then poured it in. And I'll do that every watering. I'll put in some of that oyster shell powder in it until the symptoms go away. I've also used that mixture, the little bit of powder and some water, and foliar sprayed it, and that seemed to help the plant recover a lot quicker. And those are just some quick notes again about calcium deficiency and why the plant needs calcium. Okay, I think a few shows back, I think I mentioned that I had a formula for how I figure out dosages when I make edibles. Like, let's say if I make some cookies with some canna butter that I made, how do I figure out how many milligrams of THC are in those cookies, are in each cookie? So I'm going to go over the formula that I used. And I didn't make up this formula. I got this formula off of the internet. More specifically, I believe I got this formula years ago off of High Times magazine. Alright, so in order to figure out how many milligrams of THC are in the canna butter that you made, you're going to need to know a few things. So first of all, 1 gram equals 1,000 milligrams. Okay? You're also going to have to know what the THC percentage is of the cannabis you used. Is it a 15% THC? Is it a 25% THC? You're going to need to know this. Or at the very least, make a pretty good guess if you don't know it. So as an example, let's say I've got 1,000 milligrams of cannabis, which is 1 gram. And that cannabis has a THC percentage of 25%. So I'm going to divide 1,000 by 25. And that's going to give me 250. That is the amount of milligrams of THC that are in that 1 gram. There's 250 milligrams of THC in that 1 gram of cannabis. Okay? Now, moving on to the butter. Here's how I'm going to figure out. I want to make 1 cup of canna butter using 1/8 of an ounce of cannabis, which is 3.6 grams. All right, I need to do a little math. 3.6 grams equals 3,600 milligrams. Okay. So now I'm going to take those 3,600 milligrams and divide by 25, which is my THC percentage in that cannabis. I divide 36 by 25, that's going to give me 900 milligrams of THC. All right, that means that there's going to be in that 1 cup of butter 900 milligrams of THC. All right, now that I know that, the rest of it's a little easier. Let's say I'm going to make a batch of 36 cookies. All right, so to make those cookies, I'm going to use 1/2 cup of the canna butter. So since it's 1/2 cup, there were 900 milligrams in the whole cup. In that 1/2 cup, there's going to be 450 milligrams of THC. Next, what I'm going to do is divide that 450 by the number of cookies that I'm making, which is 36. When I do that, I get 12.5 milligrams of THC in each cookie. Do you see how that worked? I divided the 450 by the number of cookies, and that gives me how many milligrams are in each cookie. That's the formula I use to figure out the dosages for whatever edibles I make. If it got confusing for you, email me at inmygrow@gmail.com or find me on Instagram at inmygrow, and I can send you this formula. I'll put it up on the show notes. Hopefully it'll be easier that way to understand. So make some chocolate chip cookies or oatmeal raisin cookies or some snickerdoodles. Ooh, I love a snickerdoodle. Let me know how the formula worked out for you. And remember, slow and low when you eat your edibles. There is no off switch with edibles. You can do a couple of things to kind of lessen the ride, but yeah, there is no turning it off. So be careful, have fun, and make some yummy cookies. That's it, brothers and sisters. I want to thank you all again for listening, wherever you're at on the planet. I appreciate you taking the time. I love you very much. And remember, if you can support the show financially, go to patreon.com, find the In My Grow Show, help support the show, and donate what you can. That support just helps me pay for my hosting fees, helps me pay for equipment, helps me make videos. All support is welcome. All support helps. If you can't support the show financially, don't worry about it. Do me a favor. Just tell 3 other people about the show. That's it. Real easy. If you're a company that wants to advertise on the show or you want to get a product reviewed, email me at inmygrow@gmail.com. Find me on Instagram at inmygrow. All right, brothers and sisters. Like I said, I'm out of here. Remember to always grow, learn, and teach.
This song's called Definition.